diversity in living organism. Okay, let's see what happens in this chapter. Okay, as you know, living organism means we're talking about all the organisms that are living, that show some characteristics by which we choose them as living, right? Here you can see so diverse they are, right? From a elephant to a lion to a small fish to a crocodile to these corals, all of them comes under living category. So much diversity in them, right? So because of that diversity we cannot study them differently, no? So we need to classify them, and this chapter talks about that only. Okay, how we are classifying all the living organisms that we have. Okay, before starting this chapter there are some important terms that we need to know. Okay, so these are important terms that we need to know. First important term is unicellular. This also you have studied in previous chapters, that unicellular means, uni means what? Uni means single or one, right? So unicellular organism means those organisms which will be made up of only one cell, only consist a single cell. Okay, as same as that multicellular. If uni means one, multi means many. So multicellular means those organisms which will be consist of more cells, more than one cells or many cells. Okay, next thing is cell wall. Cell wall we also have studied. We know that cell wall is a characteristic feature of plant cells, right? Plant cells, in case of plant cells, the cell wall is made up of cellulose. Now we have studied. In case of fungus, their cell wall is made up of chitin. In case of bacteria, their cell wall is made up of peptidoglycan. All this we have studied in the chapter cells, right? So we are going to next slide. Some more important terms. Another important term is autotroph. What does autotroph means? Auto, the word auto means what? Auto means something that happens without any intervention. That's what we call as automatic, right? So autotroph means those kind of organism which can produce its own food using light, water, carbon dioxide. So you should understand that what process we are talking about. We are actually talking about photosynthesis, right? In photosynthesis, we know now, we have studied in class 7 that we use light, water, carbon dioxide or other chemicals to produce their own food. So autotrophs means those which can perform photosynthesis, right? So autotrophs produce their own food. Sometimes also they are called as producers, yes, because they can produce their own food. Sometimes what we do, we also call them as producers. We also call autotrophs as producers. Okay, next is heterotroph. Heterotroph is nothing but, it is the opposite of autotroph. If autotrophs can produce their own food, heterotroph cannot. So you see, cannot manufacture its own food. So what it will do? If it cannot manufacture its own food, like us, we cannot manufacture our own food, right? We cannot perform photosynthesis. So what we do? We depend on autotrophs. Directly or indirectly, we depend on autotrophs. Means directly means if you eat rice, that is directly you are depending on autotrophs. You are directly depending on plants. If you eat chicken, you are eating chicken means you are eating something that eats autotrophs. Means the chicken, it eats what? Grains, right? And you are eating that chicken. So indirectly you are also dependent on autotrophs. So heterotrophs are what? They cannot produce their own food. Indirectly they are dependent on autotrophs. Next is saprophytes. Saprophyte is a special kind of heterotroph. Saprophyte is also heterotroph. They also cannot produce their own food. But what they do? They derive their energy from dead and decaying organic matter. We have talked of, we know fungus, right? If you keep a bread at your home for many days, what happens? Fungus grows on it, right? That is called as bread mold. Those fungus, what are they doing? They're deriving their energy from dead and decaying organic matter, right? So those who derive their energy from dead and decaying organic matter, what we are going to call them? We are going to call them as saprophytes. Okay. So how many terms we have come to know till now? Unicellular, multicellular, cell wall, unicellular, multicellular, cell wall, autotrophs, heterotrophs and saprophytes. Okay, let's see. In a food chain, as you see in a food chain, look, these are producers. Producer means these are autotrophs, right? All of them directly or indirectly, the grasshopper, the frog, the snake, what are they doing? The grasshopper is eating the producer directly or eating the autotrophs directly, right? Frog is eating that grasshopper, so indirectly frog is also depending on producer. The snake is eating the frog, so indirectly snake is also dependent on the producers. And the eagle or the hawk, that is also eating the snake, so indirectly the eagle is also depending on producers, right? So indirectly all of us, we are dependent on producers or autotrophs. So this is heterotroph. Let's see which are heterotroph then. This is heterotroph. Grasshopper is a heterotroph, right? Frog also heterotroph. Snake also heterotroph. Eagle also heterotroph. And this is our autotroph, grass, right? This is autotroph. And then comes decomposer. Here you can see fungus, right? What are they doing? When the hawk or the eagle is dead, they are deriving energy from it. Okay, they are deriving energy from dead and decaying organisms, right? If the snake dies, that will be also consumed by fungus. If the frog dies, that may be also consumed by it. If the grasshopper dies, that may be also consumed by the fungus. If the producer dies, that may be also consumed by this, right? If the hawk dies, that may be also consumed by this. So these are called as saprophyte. What are they doing? They are deriving energy from dead organisms. Okay, let's see in the next slide. Okay, some more terms. Prokaryote. Prokaryote term we have already studied in the first chapter. Prokaryote means it is a unicellular organism that lacks membrane bound nucleus, right? In prokaryote, pro means primitive, we have learned, right? Karyote means nucleus. Pro means primitive and karyote means nucleus. So prokaryote means primitive nucleus. Here you can see they have primitive nucleus na. So if they have primitive nucleus, that means what? They have primitive nucleus. That means what? The nucleus is not covered. They do not have any organelle like mitochondria, other membrane bound organelles like lysosome, like Golgi apparatus, our plastid, all of them are missing in prokaryotes, right? Here comes eukaryotes. Eukaryotes are what? They are complex cells or single cells with complex structure. Means what? The main thing is that they have proper nuclear membrane. Here you can see they have proper nuclear membrane, whereas prokaryote, they do not have proper nuclear membrane. So here we are calling it as nucleus, here we call it as nucleoid. Okay, here we call it as nucleoid. So that is the main difference between prokaryote and eukaryote, that eukaryotes have proper nuclear membrane, whereas prokaryotes, they do not have proper membrane, proper nuclear membrane, right? Next we are going to the next one. Okay, now as I said that in this chapter we will be studying about classification, right? In this chapter we will be studying about classification. So we need to know that what classification or why do we need classification. Okay, if you read these lines properly, you will see that what are they saying? They are saying living organisms have evolved on the earth over millions of years, right? There is a vast variety of living organisms. How? Some microscopic bacteria are of a few micrometers, very small, and some organisms like whales, redwood trees, they are about 30 to 100 meters in size, right? So there is a big variation in size. There is a big variation in what? In size. Next, what? Some trees, they live for 1,000 years. Some insects, they die within few days, like mosquito. Okay, there is an insect called mayfly. This fly is called one-day insect. It has you keep this information in your mind or write it somewhere. Mayfly is the insect which has shortest lifespan. Okay, mayfly has shortest lifespan, that is 1 day. So you see, some trees are living for thousands and thousands years, whereas some insects, they are only living for few days or only 1 day. So they are very different from each other in perspective of lifetime, right? Next is what? Next is, some organisms are colorless, right? Some organisms are colorless. You have seen cell unicellular organisms, they are mostly colorless and transparent even. Or jellyfish also, they are also transparent kind of. And some organisms are brightly colored, right? So there are so much variation in colors also. So you see, because of these variations, what are the variations we have discussed so far? The variations we have discussed so far is in size, is in lifespan, or is in color, right? So much variations are there. Because of this so much variation, we need to classify all of them, because we cannot study them individually, right? If we have to study all of the organisms individually, that will be very hard for us. So it is impossible to study them individually. And if you also say the total number of living organisms, total types of living organisms, can you tell me how many types of living organisms are there? There are actually 8.7 million types of living organisms are available. 8.7 million types of living organisms are available, right? So many types of living organisms, we cannot study them individually. So we need to classify them, we need to group them. Okay, how we are going to group them, that we will see in next slides. Okay, before classifying organisms, what you need to know that whenever you do any classification, forget about classification of living organisms, but say, suppose you have to classify your clothes. Okay, all the clothes you have in your home, you have to classify them. How you are going to classify? Suppose you have to classify them into old one and new one. Now when you need to classify your clothes, what you have to look at? You have to look at some certain characteristics like, if some clothes they are become fade, discolored, if some clothes they have become shorter, if some clothes they are torn from places to places, so you will classify them, you will consider them as old cloth, so you will classify them as old. And those who do not have any kind of defect like this, you will classify them as new. So as you understand, whenever you classify, you need a basis of classification, you need some characteristics, right, that you will follow when you are classifying. So what are the characteristics we will follow? Characteristics that we will follow here are, one second, whether the organism is made up of prokaryotic cell or eukaryotic cell. That's why we are talking about those important terms. I said those important terms that we discussed in first, that will be important for you. Whether they are prokaryotic or eukaryotic, means the nucleus has membrane or not. Okay. Whether the cells are occur singly or grouped together, means whether they are unicellular or multicellular. Whether they are unicellular or multicellular, we are going to classify them, right? Also we need to look at, what we need to look at, we need to look at that whether they produce their own food by photosynthesis or not. Do they produce their own food by photosynthesis, or they get their food from outside, So whether they are autotroph or they are heterotroph, we also need to look at it. Okay, we also need to look at it. So these are few characteristics you have to keep in mind when you are classifying. Some more characteristics. What is the level of organization? More about this we will discuss when we will come to plant kingdom. Okay, when we will come to animal kingdom, we'll discuss this more. Okay, for now just leave it. Again, level of organization, we'll discuss this later on. Okay, another more important thing, the characters used for classification of plants will be different from characteristics that are used for classification of animals. Obviously, plants or animals, they are so different from each other, right? Plants, they stand in one place for days and days, whereas animals, they can move from place A to place B. So much difference is there, na? So when you will classify plants and animals, the characteristics will take in consideration, they will be also different from each other. Okay, next, one more important thing, that how this classification is related with evolution. Look, this line you study, you will have a question in your book also from this part. Okay, the present day complex living organisms have evolved from earlier simple forms due to changes in their body design, right? We know, all of us, we started our life from what? We started our life from a single cell. Right? And now humans have evolved from that single cell. So many changes has taken place. The body designs of living organisms are gradually changing. Why they are changing? Due to changes in environment, because obviously the environment around us has also changed, and the need to adapt themselves to the changes of the environment, because they need to adapt themselves in the environment, right? So the organisms, they are also changing themselves. Some groups of organisms have ancient body designs, right? Some groups of organisms, like when you talk of single cell organism, you will see they have very ancient, very primitive type of body design, and they have not changed very much during the evolution. And some have, we'll call them as what? We'll call them as lower organism or primitive organism. And some has advanced characteristics like us, we'll call them as advanced and higher organism. Okay, advanced and higher organism. Okay, so you have seen classification and evolution, how these two are related, right? So when you are classifying organisms, we also have to keep in mind that there are some primitive organisms, right, which you also call as lower organisms, and there are some advanced and higher organisms, right, which in evolution, in the cycle of evolution, who has came later. Okay, they are called as higher organisms. Next one, how we are going to classify that we will try to understand from here via example. Okay, let's see what example. Suppose we are in a library. Okay, let's see in a library how the books are classified. Suppose in that library there are 3 buildings. How many buildings? 3 buildings. 1, 2 and 3. So what we are doing, we are classifying the books. Suppose in building number 1, only the books written by in Hindi language will be there. In building number 2, only the books written by English language will be there. On building number 3, only the books written in Bengali will be there, right? So first, what we have done, in first layer of classification, we have classified them into different buildings on the basis of what? Language. I always said, before also I have said that whenever you classify something, you classify that thing based on something, right? So you have classified the books. Based on what? Based on their language into buildings, right? So in building number 1, there will be books written on Hindi. In building number 2, there will be books written on English. In building number 3, there will be books written on Bengali. Next, what? Next, you are classifying the books into floors. Suppose, how many floors are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 floors are there, right? So we are classifying the books into floors based on what subject they are written on. Suppose on the first floor we are keeping the books which are written on novels, right? We are keeping the novels on the first floor. The books written on fiction, we are keeping them, or science fiction, we are keeping them on the second floor. Books written on maths, we are keeping them on the third floor. Books written on biology, we are keeping them on the fourth floor. Books written on history, we are keeping them on fifth floor, and books written on geography, we are keeping them on sixth floor. So first we have classified them into what? The first layer of classification is based on language. We have classified them into buildings, right? Next, based on subject, we are classifying them into floors. Now in floors also you will have different rooms. So into that rooms you will divide the books based on what context they are written on. Suppose on the fourth floor we have all the books written on biology, right? Now in biology there are also microbiology, botany, zoology. So for microbiology you have kept a separate room. For botany you have kept another separate room. For zoology you have kept another separate room. So what I am trying to explain from here is that classification, here you can see a hierarchy of classification. Classification is not done at once. Classification is done in levels, right? In first level is on the building level, next on the floor level, next on the room level. Based on different characteristics we have classified them, right? So that is the example of classification. Same type of thing we'll do with all our living organisms. Same type of thing we'll do with all our living organisms also. Let's see how we are going to do that. Okay, first I was saying the hierarchy and level of classification, right? So here what you can see, we will be able to see a hierarchy of classification. First what you are doing, first you are dividing all the organisms into kingdom, right? First you are dividing them into kingdoms. How many kingdoms? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 kingdoms. First is kingdom Monera, second is kingdom Protista, third is fungi, fourth is Plantae, fifth is Animalia. So first we are dividing them into kingdoms. Like that we have divided the books first into what? Into buildings, right? Next we divided the books as, first we divided them into buildings, next we divided them into floors based on subject, right? Then rooms, right now. So first here we are dividing based into kingdom, then further we are dividing kingdom into phylum. Like that in case of library we divided one building into different floors. Here one kingdom into different phylums. Then phylum you are dividing further into classes. Classes you are further dividing into order. Order you are further dividing them into family. Family you are further dividing them into genus. And genus you are further dividing them into species. Species is the unit of it. Unit of it means it is the last step. Like human is a species, right? So what is the definition of species? Species is a group of organisms which are similar enough to breed, right? You know, all human beings, they can breed among themselves, right? So humans, we will call them as one species. Like dogs, all of the dogs, they comes under same species, so we will call them as same species. If they can interbreed, we will call them as species. So last level is species, first level is kingdom. And you have to remember it, and you have to in exam they may ask you what are the hierarchy of classification. And when they are asking what are the hierarchy of classification, you have to write this hierarchy in the same sequence that they have given here. First you have to write kingdom, then phylum, then class, then order, then family, then genus, then species. Same sequence you have to follow in exam also. Same sequence that they have given here. Now it may be tough for you. How we are going to remember this same sequence? For that we have a shortcut. You have to keep this sentence in mind. Keep pots clean or families get sick. This sequence you have to keep in mind. Keep means kingdom, pot means phylum, clean means class, or means order, families means family, get genus, and sick means species. So if you can remember this word, this sentence, keep pots clean or family gets sick, you can easily remember kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. Okay, so this is a trick to remember. You can write it in your copy also, so it will be easier for you to remember. So we are going to the next one. How we have this slide tells us that how we have classified our living organisms. Okay, how we have classified our living organisms. First, all the living organisms, we have taken them. Then we have asked a single question. What question? That are you eukaryote or you prokaryote? If you are prokaryotes, obviously all prokaryotes are unicellular, na? All prokaryotes are unicellular. So if you are a prokaryote and unicellular, you will go to our first kingdom, that is kingdom Monera. You will go to our first kingdom, that is kingdom Monera. So what do you need to be in kingdom Monera? You need to be a prokaryote and you need to be unicellular, right? Obviously all the prokaryotes, they are unicellular, so they will be in kingdom Monera. Now if you are not prokaryote, then what you are? Then you must be eukaryote, right? There is no in between. So if you are not prokaryote, you are eukaryote then. Now if you are eukaryote, next question comes, are you unicellular or multicellular? If you are unicellular and eukaryote, you are going to be in kingdom Protista. First question what we have asked? We have asked, are you prokaryote? If you are prokaryote, you are going to kingdom Monera. If you are not prokaryote, what you are? Then you are eukaryote. If you are eukaryote, are you unicellular? If your answer is yes, you are going to be in kingdom Protista. So in kingdom Protista, who will be there? Eukaryote, unicellular, right? Unicellular eukaryotes goes to kingdom Protista. Next is what? If you are not unicellular, then what you are? You are multicellular. There is no in between, right? If you are not unicellular, what you are? You are multicellular. Now if you are multicellular, next question you will ask that, do you have cell wall? Do you have cell wall? Here you can see which cell wall. Do you have cell wall? If your answer is yes, then you will ask another question. That if you have cell wall, can you perform photosynthesis? If no, if you are a eukaryote, multicellular with cell wall, but you cannot perform photosynthesis, then you are going to be in kingdom fungi. Okay, then you are going to be in kingdom fungi. So what you need to be in kingdom fungi? You need to be eukaryote, right? This is the first step. Next step is what? You need to be multicellular. Third is what? You need to have a cell wall. Next is what? You should not perform photosynthesis or you should not have chlorophyll. If you are fulfilling these characteristics, you will be in kingdom fungi. Now if you are able to perform photosynthesis, then you will go to kingdom Plantae. So this is our third kingdom. This is our fourth kingdom, kingdom Plantae, and that is fifth kingdom. If you do not have cell wall, this end came when you answered that I have cell wall, right? If your answer was that I do not have cell wall, then where you should go? You will go to kingdom Animalia. Okay, if you do not have cell wall, you will go to kingdom Animalia. Again, let's repeat. All the living organisms, first question asked, are you prokaryote or eukaryote? If prokaryote, then you are going to kingdom Monera. If not, you are eukaryote, then next question is asked, are you unicellular or you are multicellular? If you are unicellular, you are going to be in kingdom Protista. If you are not unicellular, you are multicellular. Next question will be asked, that do you have cell wall? If you have cell wall, another question will be asked, can you perform photosynthesis? If no, then you will be in kingdom fungi. If yes, then you will be in kingdom Plantae. And if you do not have cell wall, without cell wall, multicellular, eukaryote, then you will go to kingdom Animalia. That's how our 5 kingdom classification is done. And who gave this five kingdom classification? This name is very much important. That is R. H. Whitaker. R. H. Whitaker. Five kingdom classification was given by, I am writing by mouse, that's why my handwriting is bad. It is given by R. H. Whitaker. Okay, this name also you will get in your book. Five kingdom classification is given by R. H. Whitaker. This name is very much important. Who gave five kingdom classification? R. H. Whitaker gave five kingdom classification. Okay, so I hope it is clear how the classification has been done. Now we will go to see individual kingdoms separately. Okay, now in this chapter what we will do, we will study plant kingdom and animal kingdom in details. Other kingdoms we will study lesser. Okay, first kingdom we said kingdom Monera. To be in kingdom Monera, what you need to be? You need to be a prokaryote, right? You need to be prokaryote. What mode you need to be? You need to be unicellular. If you are a prokaryote and unicellular, you will be in kingdom Monera. Okay, you will be in kingdom Monera. Take a copy and note what are the key characteristics of each kingdom. Okay, so for kingdom Monera, key characteristics are prokaryote and unicellular, and also their examples: bacteria, blue-green algae, cyanobacteria, mycoplasma. Okay, what more? Prokaryote means what? They do not have definite nucleus. This is the same thing that they have said. They may or may not have cell wall. Like blue-green algae, bacteria, cyanobacteria, they have cell wall, but mycoplasma do not have cell wall. Okay, mycoplasma do not have cell wall. So you may have cell wall or may not. You may be autotrophic or may not, right? Autotrophic, heterotrophic. These terms will be used very often in this chapter. That's why at the starting of the chapter we discussed these terms. Okay, next where we are going, let's see. Next kingdom is what? Kingdom Protista. In kingdom Protista, what you need to be in kingdom Protista? You need to be eukaryotic, obviously. If you are not eukaryotic, you are going to kingdom Monera. If you are eukaryotic and unicellular, right now here we have seen, if you are eukaryotic and unicellular, then only you can be in kingdom Protista. Okay, so what are they? They are mostly aquatic. Some of them have cilia or flagella. Cilia and flagella are nothing but, here you can see some small hair-like structures now. These are cilia. This helps them to move. These are small hair-like structures. Okay, cilia are small hair-like structure. Suppose if this is a organism na, small hair-like, this is unicellular, a single cell, small hair-like structure, we'll call them as cilia. If a long tail-like structure is available, we'll call it as flagella. So this is our flagella and this is our cilia. Nothing, cilia and flagella, they helps them to move. Okay, they helps them to move from place A to place B. They also may show autotrophic nutrition or heterotrophic nutrition. Examples: algae, diatoms and protozoans. Protozoan means like amoeba, we have seen, paramecium, all of them are protozoans. Next is what? Next is kingdom fungi. What you need to be in kingdom fungi? You need to be eukaryotic, right? You need to be eukaryotic. Now you have studied that you need to be unicellular, multicellular also, right? But here you are seeing unicellular word. We'll cut this unicellular word because there is only one exception in kingdom fungi who is unicellular. Only one exception. We'll cut this word because exception doesn't make the rule, right? If you are eukaryotic, multicellular, but do not have chlorophylls, means you cannot prepare your own food, means you are not autotroph, then you are going to be in kingdom fungi. How will you derive your food? From decaying organic matter, right? You will be in kingdom fungi. I was saying there is only one exception, na? Only one unicellular member of kingdom fungi, that is yeast. That's why yeast is very important. You have studied about yeast in class 7, where you have studied anaerobic respiration. Yeast is the only unicellular fungi. Yeast is only unicellular fungi. You have to keep in mind. Okay. Except yeast, we have aspergillus, penicillium. You have heard of. First antibiotic was discovered from penicillium, agaricus, lichens. All of them are comes under kingdom fungi. Okay, let's see next kingdom. Kingdom plantae. What you need to be in kingdom plantae? You need to be multicellular, right? You need to be eukaryote. You need to have cell wall, and you should also be able to perform photosynthesis, or you should be also able to produce your own food, right? That's what we have seen before, right? To be in kingdom plantae, you should be eukaryote, you should be multicellular, you should have cell wall, or you must have cell wall, and you should be also able to perform photosynthesis. That's how you can be in kingdom plantae, right? Now in kingdom plantae further divides into phylums, 5 phylums: Thallophyta, Bryophyta, Pteridophyta, Gymnosperms, and Angiosperms. So kingdom plantae is further divided into this 5 groups. Okay. Next is kingdom Animalia. Kingdom Animalia, to be in kingdom Animalia, what you should have? You should be multicellular, right? You should be a eukaryote, and you should not have any chlorophyll or cell wall, right? That's how you can be in kingdom Animalia. So if you do not have chlorophyll, you cannot perform photosynthesis. What you will be? You will be heterotroph, right? Kingdom Animalia also further divided into 10 groups: Porifera, Coelenterata, Platyhelminthes, Nematoda, Annelida, Arthropoda, Mollusca, Echinodermata, Protochordata, and Vertebrata. We also have to remember these names. How we are going to remember? I will give you a trick also to remember all these 10 names. Okay, I have given you one trick to remember the hierarchy. Now I will give you another trick to remember this 10 names. Okay, in next video we are going to study kingdom plantae and kingdom Animalia in details. First we will see kingdom plantae. In next video we will see kingdom Animalia. Okay, so I am keeping my video, and don't leave the video. Don't just watch the video just for watching. Keep a copy with you. Note the important points, the points that I am highlighting. Pause the video, take a screenshot. Whatever you feel important, you take it. Okay, I am always marking or highlighting the important things that may be asked from here. Okay, so I am stopping my class here today. Next day I will start from kingdom plantae and kingdom Animalia.